Hi, this is Mrs. Kidman, and in this video, we are going to be discussing how we add and subtract radical numbers. So the biggest thing about adding and subtracting radical numbers that we want to be aware of is we can only add and subtract them if they have the same radicand. Now that radicand is the number under our square root. So the only way for us to add and subtract them is if they have that same number underneath. If they have the same number underneath, then all we have to do is add the numbers in front or add those coefficients. So taking a look at this first one here, 5 root 11 plus 3 root 11. Well, they have the same number underneath. So what I'm going to do is add those numbers in front. So 5 root 11 plus 3 root 11 is just 8 root 11. Okay, now let's take a look at this next problem. 5 root 11 plus 3 root 7 minus 2 root 7. So I've got two different roots here. I've got a 5 root 11 and a root 7. Now, root 7 and a root 11, they're both prime, so there's no way that I can try to factor something out or simplify that radical to make them look the same. So instead, I'm just going to combine the ones that are alike, and the ones that aren't alike are just going to have to stay by themselves. So here we've got our 5 root 11, which had nothing else to combine with, so it stays on its own. Now our 3 root 7 and our negative 2 root 7, now those are both root 7, so I can combine them. 3 minus 2 is 1. So then we have plus 1 root 7 or plus root 7. And that's how we would add or subtract those. Now this last one, notice how all three of these numbers do not have the same radicand or the same number underneath, but none of them are prime. So what we want to do is we want to simplify what's underneath that radical first to see what is in common there and see if we can simplify it as much as we can and see if any of these, when simplified, have the same radicand. So let's take a look at simplifying 200. So I'm going to break it down into 2 and 100, 2 and 50, 2 and 25, and 25 breaks down into 5 and 5. Great, so then I've got a 2 and a 5 pair. So that really means that I've got 10 times the square root of 2. Great, that's what 200 is. Now let's take a look at our 3 square root 8. Well, 8 breaks down into 2 and 4 breaks down into 2 and 2. And so really the square root of 8 is 2 times the square root of 2. Now we've already got 3 of those, so we've got to do 3 times 2, which is 6, times the square root of 2. And then we've got our last one over here with our 72. So we can break 72 down into 8 and 9. And then 9 breaks down into 3 and 3, and 8 breaks down into 2 and 4. And that 4 breaks down again into 2 and 2. So I've got a 2 and a 3. Well, we can pull those out, and 2 times 3 is 6. So I can pull a 6 out. So the square root of 72 is really 6 root 2. And I've got negative 5 of those. So I need to do negative 5 times 6, and that would be minus 30 root 2. Now notice how these all have the same radicand. So what can we do? We can combine them together. And 10 root 2 plus 6 root 2 minus 30 root 2 will give us a negative 14 times the square root of 2. And that is how we're going to add those square roots or those radicals. Now they have to have the same radicand. The other thing that we need to be aware of is they do need to be the same type of root. So they either need to be square roots, they all need to be cubed roots, something like that, but they can't, we can't combine a square root and a cubed root. The reason why is think of when we add and subtract, and we're adding and subtracting monomials. So if I had 6x plus 2x, what I do here is I can combine these and I can get 8x. But if I have 6x plus 2x squared, well, these are different and they're raised to different powers. So similarly, just like our radical signs, if it's a different radical sign, if it's a square root versus a cubed root versus a fourth root, we can't combine those because they're not the same. So we need to make sure that we're combining them that way. And when we subtract, all we do is subtract instead of add. But that is how you would add and subtract when given radicals. Make sure they have the same radicand or number underneath your radical symbol. And make sure that the type of root that they are is the same as well.